This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Luke from Eastern Iowa writes, seeing as how this show took place in Vegas, I'm sure the boys and girls took some time to hit the casinos. Does Vince go to casinos? If so, what does he like to play? Any big winning stories? How about you, Bruce? Does the crew have a favorite casino? So lots of gambling questions here. Does Vince gamble?
Vince, I think there was a time that he used to, Vince gambles every time that we run a show. But Vince used to like to play blackjack, baccarat, and craps. He enjoyed the craps tables.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. I like my blackjack, and I like my 3-card poker.
Is there a spot like a go-to that you remember everybody liking to gamble?
Back in the day, probably Caesars. And then later on, it became the Wynn.
Any good stories you remember about one of the boys hitting it big?
I remember just Gorilla Monsoon, who I loved to go to the casinos with because people bowed down at his feet. But I remember the weekend in Atlantic City that I was going to ask my wife to marry me, and Monsoon had set everything up for me at Caesars, and he and Maureen were there for the weekend. And I used to love to go take weekend trips with Gino and his wife, Maureen, and he'd take care of everything. You'd have your suite set up at Caesars, and everything was taken care of. But one day, sitting at the high roller blackjack table, watching Monsoon drop $30,000 was holy shit for me. And this was, mid 90s. That's a lot of money to lose in a morning.
It's a lot of money to lose in a year.
Yeah. But to lose it in a morning, know, and that was just kind of holy shit, fucked up.
Phil Milan writes, did you guys know yet that Christian was leaving? Were there reports that this was one of the matches that made him want to leave?
I don't know. I think Christian just had made up his mind that he needed to move on and make a name elsewhere to come back and be worth more.
And yeah, I mean, as we know, that is going to happen. He is going to pop up as Captain Charisma. I think his contract expired on like Halloween. And according to Meltzer, I think they were asking him to re-sign a new contract, but he's going to decline, and he's out of there. And, he debuts, I guess, in November, just a couple of weeks later. How often do you think, I mean, is there a moment it feels like a lot of these sort of journeyman type guys who have a ton of success as a part of one act, when they have to do something different, it feels like it can go one of two ways. And I think Christian probably did the right thing and pulled himself out of the situation just to, as Jim Ross used to say, as you joke all the time, go learn a new hold. How advisable do you think that is for a guy to, get a change of scenery?
It obviously depends on the talent, but for anyone, distance makes the heart grow fonder. So if you go away, sometimes they're like, boy, I'm glad he's gone. But after a while, they start to miss you. And when you come back, they realize that, hey, I missed him for a while, and they're much more appreciative a lot of times. Then you just don't want to overstay your welcome.
Let's get to the next question here. The Rosen Coaster writes, why did Triple H take time off after the show? Did he just need a break? Was he injured? Didn't bother me either way. I was just curious if you had any firsthand knowledge of why he was out.
I don't remember. I don't remember. It may have just been to, nagging injuries and take a little bit of time off. It happens.
Adam writes, Batista was at his best against Triple H. Does Bruce think that the game could have been more giving with some other opponents throughout the years? This is some of the Triple H hate that I admit I have subscribed to over the years, but I do agree, man, when he was invested, goodness gracious, he made Batista a huge star here. I mean, I think most would agree that Batista's best opponent, probably Triple H.
Yeah, but I think the Triple H has made a lot of guys that he's been in the ring with, including Batista, obviously, but you look at a guy like The Rock and Austin, and those matches with Triple H really helped. It helped make all of them, and I think that he's done an excellent job throughout the years at everything and making guys and getting them over.
On this day in WWE asks, would Bruce have accepted Lillian's proposal, or would he have opted to ride on the Godfather's hoe train?
I'd have opted to just go home.
You know what? That's real life. Behind the scenes, Bruce would have just said, can I go? Cause I'd really like to go.
Yeah. When's the next flight?
Yeah, I'll drive. Can I just leave? That would be good. John Alba, friend of the show, writes, around this time, people thought Christian was on the verge of breaking through into the main event as a mainstay, but he didn't. Why do you think that is? And why do you think his TNA stint propelled him there? I mean, it's a great follow-up question. You know, we've talked about it before, that you've often joked that one of the ideas Vince had was, let's just put a blue dot over Christian's face. For whatever reason, he just wasn't going to get behind him as a singles performer. And he's getting a little bit of popularity. He's getting a little bit of momentum here, but Vince just doesn't see it. But when he goes to TNA, he's presented as a top guy, becomes their world champion, and he comes back in, and what do you know? He wins the world heavyweight championship here as well. But I don't think that maybe would have been in the cards for him had he not left. Is it just timing?
It is just timing, and it's being able to give an example of what you can do somewhere else where you may not be given that platform. So he took that platform elsewhere, made the most of it, and then said, hey, I can do it. And when you prove that you can do it and give an example of it, then it's a lot easier to see.
Interesting question here from Pete. He says, how complex or not is the production process behind a Hell in a Cell match? Thinking in terms of construction, arena requirements, number of cameras, time, cost, etc. We haven't really talked about that, but from a production side, does the Hell in a Cell add a whole new wrinkle that's a ton more work?
Well, it's a ton more work for setup because you've got to construct the Hell in a Cell, and that's a big monstrosity in and of itself. So you've got to construct it, you've got to hang it, you've got to reinforce it, and that's about it. I mean, it's a pain in the ass. Yes, it does require more work. However, the crews have gotten to a point where it's just another day. Hey, we need a Hell in a Cell. We got to get that done. They get it done. Hey, we need an elimination chamber. You get that done. And it does require more setup, does require more time, but it's just another day at the office. It's a difference between, hey, I've got, 15 new home loans and I've got 12 refinances today. Some's going to require more work than the other, but you're happy for them all and you just get it done.
Corey Payne wants to know who created the set. This is something that we get questions about all the time, Bruce. A lot of our listeners really preferred the old school themed pay-per-view entrance sets as opposed to the fully digital LED Jones that we get these days. Who would have been in charge of creating some of these set designs back in the day?
Back about this time may have been Jason Robinson, and this was a concerted effort to try and make everyone unique and utilize, but if you notice, we utilized a lot of the same elements in different ways. So it was just the creativity of those folks in set design that would come up and say, hey, what about this? And throw out an idea that would work and go build the son of a bitch day of. And hit and miss at that point, take some things away. Hey, can we add this? Is there anything over here we can do? So that's what we did. I believe it was Jason Robinson who was doing that at the time.
Captain Millennial wants to know, did Batista wear all white on this show to highlight how much blood Triple H drew in that match?
I would hope so.
That's kind of the name of the game, right? If you're going to do it, make the most of it.
I mean, hell, why not? If you're going to get blood and you're a manager, you wear a white coat.
Jack Styles wants to know, at this point, who did Vince think was the face of the WWE? Batista or John Cena? See, on the surface, to me, Hell in a Cell closing the show, I mean, he closed it at Mania 2. It feels like he thinks it's Batista at this point, and he's still trying to bump Hulk up, not Hulk, but Cena up a little bit. So he's rubbing him up against Hulk Hogan and other things like that to maybe boost him. But to me, it looks like he's thinking it's Batista here.
I think the jury was still out. And I think it was, we're going to see what's going to happen. Dave may have been for the time, but I think John was the guy that was coming up in the ranks and able to do it all.
Chris Herman wants to know, out of everyone who's used the move, does Kane give the best choke slam of all?
No, Taker does. Kane's the second best.
Kieran Walsh wants to know, the Vengeance 05 set is my all-time favorite. Why did WWE stop using individual sets for pay-per-views as opposed to the one size fits all these days?
Just budget and looking at, sometimes having to recreate all that and do new, and it's budget, simplicity is the main reason.
Obtuse Angles wants to know, is this one of the most underrated Hell in a Cell matches of all time? It kind of gets overshadowed by the excellent Kurt and Shawn match on this very card, but damn, did it tell a story.
It was one of the best Hell in a Cell matches of all time, and a damn good pay-per-view of all time that I think doesn't get enough credit. I didn't give it enough credit as to why in the hell we were doing it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, go back and watch it. I mean, this is a 2-match show. There's a lot of great stuff on here, but 2 matches blow everything else away. And I can't recommend them enough. Check them out. We'll do one more and then we'll wrap things up here. Well, I guess we'll do 2 more. Scott wants to know, Bruce, why did Triple H take the summer off? Was he burned out? We were talking earlier about, guys needing time away. And I think somewhere, I might have it mixed up, but somewhere in 05, you took a little bit of a break too, right? You were working from home more. Tell me about how burnout became a thing for you in this era.
It was, it was more of a thing of I had spent so much time dealing with a lot of personal things, with my family's health, and you get caught up in all of that. You try to use work almost as the escape. And when both become overwhelming, you got to choose, and you have to choose one or the other. But in reality, you have to choose yourself and get yourself okay to deal with one or the other end or both. So for me, I had just reached the point of, I was ready to explode. I was ready to explode because I wanted to escape into work. And at the same time, I had to deal with a lot of medical issues on the family side. So trying to do both, it just stretched me about as thin as I could go. And before I snapped, I had to walk away and just take I forget what the hell the doctor called it. Wasn't a sabbatical or leave of absence or something like that, but I had to get away. I had to just shut down, get my head right and take care of my family, because that was the most important thing.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.